Welcome back, guys, to Voicey here in another r/PettyRevenge. I'm your host, Captain Zach, for the weekend show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story was called Entitled Neighbor Messes with My Scooter, So I Mess Back. This happened a couple of years ago, but was reminded of it after seeing another post today. I lived in a gated community with many high-rises in a crowded city. I used to get to work by electric scooter. I had a crappy scooter, though, that needed to be charged every other day. One night after work, I decided to head out to a bar to meet my friends in the city. But before I headed out, I realized my scooter needed charging. I put 2 coins in and got 4 hours on the charging clock. I returned about 3 hours later and see that my charger is unplugged and another scooter is being charged in its place. I'm really annoyed at this point because this is not the first time there's been inconsiderate behavior at the charging station. Also, my scooter is really crappy and needs a full 4 hours, and I felt whoever did it was inconsiderate and lazy. They could have come out of their apartment after an hour or more had passed if it was a real emergency to charge their bike. It was not even 9 p.m. at this point. The entitled neighbor paid for 4 hours to charge their bike, but the clock had 4 hours plus 50 minutes of my time. My scooter had just enough juice to get to work in the morning. I didn't even know if the neighbor would come back to the bikes before the morning, so I didn't switch it back. What I did instead was I unplugged their charger just enough so it wasn't charging anymore, but it looked like it was plugged in. The port was already finicky, so there would be a little suspicion in the morning. I woke up the next morning and rode to work. At some point during the day, I see a bike at work without a battery. I recognize it as the same exact bike from the night before. I then put 2 and 2 together. My coworker was the entitled neighbor. She had earlier complained about having to walk her bike all the way to work and carry her heavy battery up the stairs to charge it once she got there. There weren't any more problems like that in the neighborhood again, though. Petty revenge is beautiful because it requires restraint and calculation. Alright, see, this was thought through. That makes it wonderful and devious. Alright, this story was called Let Me Freshen That Air For Ya, Boss Lady. Alright, so this was my first real job after college. My boss was a real two-faced Karen. There were so many times she would tell me one thing, and my boyfriend's mother, who owned the company, would tell me the exact opposite. My boss would say, "You're doing a great job. No, I don't think you can improve on anything. Of course, you can make up time for that doctor's appointment." Then she would go to my boyfriend's mom and complain about me. She would contradict everything she was telling me, and it went on and on. A few years later, we changed offices and she was a total Karen about it. She just had to have a window. Made the biggest frickin' deal about it. Well, my boyfriend's mom knew her style, and there was only one office with a window where our department would be located. Obviously, that was her new office. The kicker, it was right next to the bathroom. After years of enduring her complaints, I couldn't take it anymore. She made the biggest deal about this freaking window before we moved. And now, she's complaining about the smelly excretions people were vacating from their bowels. How could they not think of her and just spray some darn air freshener? Enter Petty Revenge. You bet your butt I saved all my unholy dookie storms for that bathroom and sprayed the most obnoxious cloud of air freshener imaginable. It made me so unbelievably happy when I heard her complaining to a coworker about how much air freshener I used. There were several times I had to close the door to my windowless office because the smell was so strong. I mean, I have asthma, for goodness sake. I can't be around all that. Hee hee. This revenge story is beautiful because of its long-lasting nature, as in, Karen will continually have to deal with the stank of other people's dookie water. Let me know in the comments below any similar revenge tales you might have. Feel free to let them all loose. This story was called My Neighbor Kept Blocking My Driveway, Now Their Lives Are a Little Bit Less Convenient. Here is a bit of backstory. We bought the house about a year ago. It's down a long driveway and we sit behind the houses directly on the roadside. The house in front of us has always parked on the roadside, despite having a driveway, and the rear of their cars are always blocking 1 to 3 feet of my drive. It's still enough room to get out, but it's a pain. We never made an issue because they're otherwise good neighbors. Until about 2 months ago. I finished work and came home around 2 a.m. There had been a big storm. One of their trees had fallen on my drive, so I parked in front of their house. Walked down the driveway and figured I'd deal with it in the morning when the weather had cleared. Plus, it's not my tree, so not really my responsibility. I'm woken up from my crying partner telling me the neighbor had just berated her for parking in front of their house, which is their park, when in reality, it's clearly not. It's a public roadside. I go out to see them, same situation, nutcase lady starts berating me for parking in their spot. I told her the only reason my truck was parked there was because there was a tree on my driveway earlier. She insists on being a childish idiot, so I pretty much walk away. There was nothing to gain from continuing that conversation. I call the local council to see what can be done about them blocking my drive. Turns out, it's not only highly illegal to block my drive, but it's also illegal to park within 3 feet of my driveway boundary too. Basically, the whole area has to stay clear to allow for big emergency vehicles, etc. But they aren't allowed to park within 3 feet of their own drive either. So, it basically means a vehicle could not park between our 2 driveways unless it was a moped or something similar. The council has a 24-hour contractor who issues fines for parking violations. So I call them every couple days for a few weeks to report them blocking my drive. I always finish work at 2 a.m., which is when I call, so the owners are never awake when the ticket is issued. It also basically makes the ticket impossible to dispute. After maybe 10 fines to 4 different vehicles at $160 each, the ticketing officer and the council get sick of coming out, so they start towing the vehicles. 2 cars towed in 2 days. Now, I have been enjoying my free passage driveway for about a month now and life's pretty good. And they have to park all their stupid vehicles further down the street and out of my life. Yes, legal revenge. Okay, let me know in the comments below any parking stories you might have, alright? We got toilet stories and parking stories coming up. This story was called Burning Man Petty Revenge Shenanigans. My camp, Iceberg Cowboys, has an ongoing prank war with the Philharmonic camp, Frozen Oasis. Last year, they stole a whole bunch of our ice furniture and giant icicles, set it up around their camp, and replaced it with a bunch of their furniture and several bottles of champagne. This was likely in response to our 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. techno party, which not everyone in their classic music-minded camp enjoyed. But it's the burn! So instead of being benches about it, they pranked us complete with notes such as, "Hey, we heard your DJs downloaded a second song." In response, we decided that if they wanted some of our stuff, they could have all of our stuff. So we proceeded to carry several large pieces of our infrastructure, including a 30-foot diameter dome and a 400-pound wrought iron Iceberg Cowboy sign, over to their camp and bolted it to the ground with 14-inch lag bolts. Good, clean, and good-natured fun. We all had a laugh about it together, traded witty barbs, and enjoyed many bottles of champagne together the next morning. This year, on Sunday night, before gates even opened, one of our icicles disappeared and magically reappeared down the street in front of the Frozen Oasis. They returned it several hours later, but we had already noticed. So, it was game on. Our burn barrel for disposing of burnable trash has our camp logo cut into the side of it. So we decided to swap burn barrels with them, left a bottle of champagne in our burn barrel, knowing that our logo would clearly indicate who was responsible and where the burn barrel could be found. As we knew, they would attempt to steal it back. So we bolted their burn barrel to the ground in front of our camp with several 14-inch lag bolts. Sure enough, the next night, 15 people in polar bear onesies showed up in full covert ops mode to steal back their barrel and return ours. Our logo is a polar bear. Clearly, they had planned ahead on pranking us again. They weren't aware of the bolts though, so we easily caught them in the act, but let them proceed, knowing full well it would be extremely difficult to unbolt their barrel from the ground without proper tools. One of the polar bears whipped out a Leatherman and proceeded to try to unscrew the bolts by hand. While she was making progress, it would have taken her several hours to complete the unbolting. So, after 15 minutes, when it became clear she was not going to give up, I brought her our impact driver and pulled the bolts for her. As they drove away with their barrel, they yelled back that they had left us a present in our burn barrel that they had returned. And they had, in fact, left us gifts stacked inside our burn barrel to the tune of several very nice bottles of wine and champagne, special chips that allow us to skip the line at their awesome all-day slushy bar, and a slew of custom engraved mugs. The kicker was this. They had taken the ash screen and welded it shut over the top of the barrel, so we could see everything inside, but couldn't get to it. It took an hour of popping tack welds with the crowbar to get it open. I love Burning Man. Sometimes cute stories like these where no one is harmed and everyone is happy in the end are nice. But don't worry, the next one will be a doozy. This story is called A Secret Santa Gift. A little bit of backstory, then on to the night of the event. I got a job with a company in another state and relocated there with the missus. The phone interview went pretty well, and the operations manager told me that there would be regular reviews and pay rises. When I forced the first review and asked about the pay rise, the owner of the company looked at me and said, "What more value will you offer to justify it?" This was only 2 weeks after I had done 136 hours in 6 days. And darn near killed myself trying to get a number of different projects together. This was in the first year. Now, the regional city we were in is famous for its drinking culture, and the boss actually paid for a decent Christmas party. So, drunken shenanigans were the norm, and every year they had a secret Santa. For those of you who don't know what that is, everyone draws the name of someone in the company out of a hat, and has to anonymously get them a small gift. The last Christmas party that I attended was coming up. At that point, the hierarchy of the company didn't know that I was already arranging to leave, in a fairly sudden fashion, but more on that later. And I managed to draw the owner's name out of the hat for the Secret Santa gift. I racked my brain on what to get, and finally picked out what I thought was the perfect gift. Fast forward to the night of the Christmas party, all of my friends in the company know that I'm leaving, and they're keeping quiet for me. Everyone is getting well lubricated, and it's time to hand the gifts out from everyone's Secret Santas. There's a few silly coffee mugs, a G-string for one of the more manly guys there, and then the owner picks up his gift. He opens it up to discover that it's one of those rubbish grabbers. The expression on his face is one of, "Weird flex, but okay." As the night starts to wrap up, I mentioned to one of my mates that it's really important that he reads the card. So, with everyone still there, he yells out, "Hey boss, the card you got with your gift, what does it say?" The boss pulls the card out and reads it out loud. "The perfect gift for those with very short arms and very deep pockets." To this day, I'm not sure if he knows I gave it to him, but everybody else does. As for me leaving, while this was happening, I had been packing a shipping container full of our furniture and had arranged to have 3 months of paid leave starting the same week as Christmas. I had so much leave because they didn't pay overtime, they gave it as time in lieu. The shipping container was picked up on Christmas Eve and I left the state that night, driving 3,000 kilometers in 2.5 days. I had got them to pay all my leave entitlements in a lump sum, and I sent them a resignation letter 3 weeks before I was due to return to work. This story reminds me of those jokes that have a really long build-up for just a stupid punchline at the end. This man worked his butt off for 3 months of paid leave just to diss his boss and give him a crappy present. Let us know in the comments if you have any funny Secret Santa stories. This story was called "Almost Got Truck Mashed, So I Mashed Him and His Car." I had a pretty funny road rage incident the other day. I was leaving work. I work as a bartender at a country club. This guy makes a left-hand turn, moves over both lanes, and almost runs into me. But I jump my truck up on the curb and sidewalk to avoid him hitting me. I blew my horn at him until we pulled up to the next light about 100 yards down the road. By the time we got there, he had shifted back into the left lane. I have an old truck without AC, so my window was already down. He rolls down his window, and instead of apologizing, he flips me the middle finger and yells, "F you!" At this moment, the only logical thing I could think to do next was grab the large white styrofoam to-go box completely full of mashed potatoes and launch it into his car. As the box crosses the plane of his passenger window, the box clips the top of the opening. This causes the mashed potatoes to explode into his car and cover him in the entire front seats of his car. It was the most satisfaction I have ever had. I immediately make the right-hand turn and book it out of there. I can only imagine what was going through his head as he sat there covered in buttery goodness. My only regret was that I did not get to eat my mashed potatoes, but I still had the prime rib when I got home. Ooh, let's hope that guy had leather seats because in my experience, mashed potatoes do not come out of upholstery very easily. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.